Thanks for staying with us, everyone. Our attention is turned to the Supreme Court judgment on the 8 governorship appeals last week, Friday. And my guest is a legal practitioner, former presidential aide, and an APC chieftain, Chief Okoi Obla, joins us live from our Abuja studio. Thank you for staying the course on the program. Let's quickly touch on a few things that you raised earlier. I'm sure that you're following the developments very closely as well. Some lawyers have now asked the National Judicial Council to sanction the judges involved, in what they described as miscarriage of justice at the appellate court. I just want to know if there are provisions in law, to make justices accountable for the decisions and judgments they make in court.
Well, I think so. The National Judicial Council is responsible for, to recommend people for appointments to the appointing authority, also to the discipline of lawyers, judges. And so I think the aggrieved parties can petition if they feel that those judges stood the law, upside down, or interpreted the law upside down. They can petition them, and it is left for them to support their petition with grounds that will make this National Judicial Council to consider their petition. Maybe the precedents should be set in Nigeria, where judges that will not handle matters, in a proper way or incompetently, can be petitioned so that the system can purge them out and remove them. So that may be a precedent. So I'm not adverse to that, based on the fact that there were several judicial precedents. And they always tell us that judges are bound, of the lower courts, are bound by the judgments of the superior court. And in that very position, I was confused when I read the judgments, particularly the one that concerns nomination, because in the case of, PDP took the President Bola Tinubu to court and the Vice President, Senator Shettima, to court over the nomination process of the Vice President, which they argued that was not proper. And the Supreme Court gave a judgment, even before considering those same issue in the the petitions filed by Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi. So there were numerous precedents, as we used to say, plethora of authorities. So I don't know why the appellate judges that heard the Plateau State case and the Kano State, if their attention was not drawn to those decisions, Peter Obi and Tinubu, Shettima, and PDP, and if their attention, those judgments were not commended to them, because that is what lawyers were supposed to do, embark on research, and then always ensure that it is a professional responsibility. Lawyers owe the court, as ministers in the temple of justice, to commend judgments or decisions, even if those decisions are against your case, the case of your client, you are bound to cite those decisions to the court so that the court can go and study them and make decisions one way or the other.
I'm glad you made mention.
So the lawyers are also equally guilty. The lawyers who handle those matters also should be subjected to the disciplinary proceedings of the NBA, or the Nigerian Bar Association, if they deliberately do not cite those cases to the judges of the appellate court in those two states, Kano and Plateau states.
I was going to say, I'm glad you made mention of the presidential election and how it went in court, because interestingly, the same Court of Appeal held in the presidential election petitions that whoever is not a member of a political party or isn't an aspirant in the primary election of a political party cannot challenge the nomination of a candidate of another party. So it's strange that it didn't follow its own decision in this case. And perhaps it's why many people, aren't taking the judiciary very seriously.
Well, I don't think we should generalize. In every system you have the bad and the, and the good people. So let us not use an isolated case to begin to say our judges are bad. our judges are some of the best in the Commonwealth, countries that practice the common law system in Nigeria. If you go to, I did a master's in Liverpool. I mean, the cases, judgments from Nigeria are always cited all over the Commonwealth, in England, in Australia, in India, in New Zealand, in Kenya, and so forth and so on. So we shouldn't use some isolated cases to begin to say that all judges are bad. You saw what happened in the Supreme Court, how the Supreme Court was able to, wriggle out and then also restore the integrity and the authority of judges. But it is not a Kano state or Plateau. What of crossover state? Why did the lawyers in that matter pushed on? They lost in the tribunal on the same point of nomination, because they were saying that the deputy governor of crossover state used to be a member of PDP, and he went, he left PDP to join APC, and then he was given the nomination to be deputy governor or running mate to Senator Basio too. They were also saying that he was not qualified because he holds a Nigerian and British passport. And they went to the Federal High Court. They lost. They went to the Court of Appeal on that same point. They lost. And then they now brought up the matter again in the election petition. And even though they lost in the tribunal, they lost in the Court of Appeal, they still went to the Supreme Court. That is needless litigation. And you begin to wonder what the lawyers are up to. Are they using the court as an experiment? It shouldn't be. Because you are a lawyer, you are enjoined to advise your client professionally without any emotion. If your client does not listen to you, you give him back his case. There is no need going to the Supreme Court, going to the Court of Appeal on a needless point of law that has been resolved by the appellate court in several cases.
Let's hold that thought, Chief Obla.
It's bad.
Let us quickly, get back to the phone line. Okorafo has called from Arochukwu in Abia State. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, my brother Nifemi. Good morning, our guest. Now, you see, what has just glittering now in our polity is very, very hard and very, very strong. That is to say that the politicians in each political parties, they should allow power. They should just keep power aside and follow protocol and follow the normal sequence of a political party guidelines. It will help us. A situation whereby some group of people will join the political party, they will just gang up that if it's not their own candidate, the political party must not exist. Such position will not move. That's how we tell them. They are not making our judiciary look at the judgment that the Abuja own gave in terms of the House of Assembly in Plateau State. Now look at the judgment the Abuja judge gave in terms of Kano. Now, to name them, just a few. Now, if you see that, even though you didn't go to any university to read law or to go to law school, you start asking yourself, what are the judges thinking? What is the type of judgment they are making? How do they take their record? How do they take their briefs? Because a layman will start asking you, because is that a lawyer? Look at the type of judgment that is going on. It's in judgment zigzag. Supreme Court just clamped down. What the Supreme Court said was a fact. That is to say, we have to go and review our judiciary system. Not talking about the Constitution. Constitution, that of apartheid regime, is still going on. Yes. And the National Assembly are creating a very big problem. Every day they collect money, they are reviewing Constitution, right from a Buremadu regime and Salaki regime. I was expecting that by now that Constitution could have been ready, signed by the president. Now, what are we seeing? The area we go back to the basis and put our Constitution straight, and the area the judicial system go back to the basis and do the rightful thing at rightful time and forget about statement that they say, and put the Constitution. It's better for us. If we continue that.
Mazi, thank you for your contribution. We're going to talk about the role of the National Assembly shortly. Chief Obla, I want to get your reaction to the position of the former chairman of the NHRC, Professor Odin Kalu, who called on the president of the Court of Appeal to resign her position. He's described the case of Plateau State as a willful miscarriage of justice.
Well, I don't think we should use the social media or the electronic and print media to fight judges and make a show and play to the gallery. Anybody who feels that the president of the Court of Appeal has committed a professional misconduct, there's a procedure. You petition him to the National Judicial Council, and the National Judicial Council will look into the matter and decide one way or the other. I don't think it is right for us to begin to use the media to advocate that judges who have done so and so should resign or should be removed. There's a procedure, because if you do that, it's an act of impunity. In as much as we are advocating for the deepening of the rule of law in Nigeria, constitutionalism and democracy, we should not also do things in a capricious, in a whimsical manner that will become a laughing stock in the community of nations. So I will not subscribe to that point of view. But if he has grounds to petition the president of the Court of Appeal, let him go ahead and petition her to the National Judicial Council and support the petition with good grounds.
Sonny has called in from London. Good morning.
Morning, Ifemi, and good morning, Chief Okoi. First and foremost, yes, good analysis by Chief Okoi, and I think there are 2 points I would like to make here. One, the issue of the Supreme Court judgment. The first question we should be asking is that should Supreme Court, knowing that the State Assembly election and the judiciary process for it, hence in the Court of Appeal, should they have made pronouncement about that judgment? I'm surprised people are having a blind spot about that. I think there should be a question about the Supreme Court. Should they have made a pronouncement over a judgment that was not even brought before them, and they don't have question about it? I think that question needs to be answered. The second point I'd like to make is this. I'm a bit worried about the direction of our politics, and in the sense that when you look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic and the section that gives power to political parties, it is clear that the constitution of every political party matters. They are in order, they are in pecking order. Now, from what we are seeing now, it looks like what the judiciary is saying is that political parties no longer have to follow even their constitution and the guidelines they have written for themselves. And this is a very dangerous direction, because if you are a political party, you set in tone in your constitution that this is the way you are going to be electing your candidate for election, and you deviate. And another person, maybe who pays attention, saw that what you've done is wrong as a political party and challenge you on that. Because that is what I'm getting, that our judiciary or our lawyers or our judges are saying the constitution of a party or the procedure as defined by each party no longer matter. As far as some people gangs up in a particular political party and say, you know what, even if you've gone through primaries, we are the ones in this party that will still decide who becomes a candidate. I think these are 2 areas that are very, very dangerous for our politics. And I think I just felt I should make this clear. Thanks for a good job, and thanks you for that.
Thank you, Sonny, for your contribution. His first comment, Chief Obla, was whether or not the Supreme Court should have made a comment, on the judgment of the Court of Appeal, since they have no power over it.
Well, I don't think so. I think the Supreme Court, as I said, is a court of review. The Supreme Court will always look at every paper that is contained in the record of appeal emanating from the lower court. So I believe maybe that judgment of the Plateau State High Court is in the record of proceedings and also in the records of appeal, because that position was canvassed in the election tribunal by the petitioner. It canvassed, so I believe they must have tendered, those proceedings before the election tribunal, and then they went to the Court of Appeal, and then the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will always ensure that every relevant records, because both parties are always invited for settlements of records at the registry of the appeal where the appeal is emanating from. So when they were preparing the records, or when the governor of Plateau State appealed, I believe the lawyers from both sides were invited by the registrar of the Court of Appeal to look at all the documents before moving the records to the Supreme Court. So I believe the Supreme Court was seized of the records, seized of that judgment. If otherwise they cannot make a pronouncement on what is not before it, because it is a court of review. Review means looking at the documents and all that in order to see whether there was an error, whether there was a mistake that should be corrected. That is the work of the Supreme Court as a court of review.
Mukhtar has called it. Just a minute, sir.
Okay.
Okay, let me just take this call briefly, and then I'll be back with you, Chief. Good morning, Mukhtar. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning. How are you doing?
Terrific. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yeah, I really commend you for the good job you are making.
Thank you, Mukhtar.
Yeah, I just want to make some few comments and complain as far as TVC is concerned. You see, the viewers in the Northwest, you are always neglecting when they call to contribute. Your people always concentrate in Lagos, like Yakub, George, Pastor. You don't consider the Northwest viewers. We patronize CBC as far as this program is concerned. But most of us are being neglected. Now, in the case of Supreme Court judgment, I really commend them, and they saved the nation. Yes, and the Supreme Court judgment really saved this nation. Because they did what is supposed to be done. I really commend them.
All right.
And the tribunal and the Court of Appeal, I think those judges should be punished because they know what they are doing is wrong. Thank you very much.
Well, before you go, Mukhtar, I can give you my word that there is no bias to picking the calls. We just pick the calls as they come. And because the conversation is ongoing, your call might also be delayed until there is room to pick the call. It's perhaps why we're able to pick your call as well. And I'm sure it's not the first time you've called on the show. So you should be able to also attest to that. Yeah, Chief, you were going to say something just now.
Yes, I was going to say the caller from London he was giving the impression that judges have helped political parties to throw away their constitution. Yes, I want to correct that impression. I don't agree with that. You see, Nigerian lawyers are the one causing confusion or mothering up issues. You can challenge their constitution, their process of nomination through pre-election matters. Okay? That is before election. There's room for people who are aggrieved over party nomination process to go to the Federal High Court. And you can litigate from the Federal High Court right to the Supreme Court. But sometimes you see lawyers, because there's a thin line between pre-election and post-election, some lawyers going to the election tribunal and then trying to smuggle in the nomination process under the guise that maybe the person is not constitutionally qualified. Like we saw them talking about the nomination process in Kano of NNPP, that the governor was not a member of MPP, and therefore he shouldn't have contested. They try to bring it under section 177 of the Constitution that says that before you are eligible to stand for election, you must be a member of a political party. So that is where the confusion is coming from. And if you are not, if a judge is not very careful, you can easily get muddled up, because sometimes if you read the cases, it seems as if, you can go to election tribunal, you cannot go also through to a pre-election court. So we should always try to encourage our our clients. After the primary, primary election process, where candidates are nominated, people should go to, people who are challenging, maybe the eligibility of a candidate that has been pronounced the winner of the party primary election. They should go to the Federal High Court that has jurisdiction and then try to push it to the Supreme Court. But while they are filing their petitions after election, they should concentrate on the Electoral Act, the infringement of the Electoral Act by INEC or the other party, and also the infringement of the constitutional provisions that has to do with eligibility to contest. But if you try to model up and mix up nomination and qualification, then it becomes a problem. And that is why my friend from London is having this impression that
I hear you clearly, Chief.
The judges, the courts are throwing away the party's constitution. Also, lastly, we should have good political parties. Those who are in the national executive committees of our parties should run the political parties like parastatals. Be transparent, be just. They should also be well educated, because I expect all the political parties to start studying the judgments of the election tribunal, the Supreme Court. They should start studying them.
Unfortunately,
in the next
it's like
4
a
years,
cycle.
we should not see those mistakes.
The parties keep making the same mistakes, year in,
exactly,
every election.
Exactly,
year.
because they don't elect.
Let's take one last call,
They
Chief,
don't elect.
before we go.
Let me make
take
this
one
point
last call.
fine.
Okay, please go ahead. Go ahead, Chief.
Go ahead. They don't elect competent people to man our political parties. They are just running the political parties casually. They should run the political parties like parastatals, okay? And make sure that competent people are recruited, lawyers, accountants, are recruited to work in the political parties, to help the political parties. Otherwise, our political parties are becoming laughing stock, because they just bring people to come and become national chairman, legal advisor, and so forth and so on. People who are not really competent and just and fair-minded.
Let's take one last call. Adenuga has called in from Songo. Adenuga, you have just 1 minute. Please go ahead.
Thank you. You know what? By the judgment of the Supreme Court, one day a foreigner will become a governor and a president of Nigeria. Since anybody, the laws of the political party, a political party that willfully flouts its own law is supported by the Supreme Court. One day, a foreigner will be imposed as the president of Nigeria, and there's nothing you cannot do because of the president of that central bank has said. And I think election is a process. Any part of the process that is faulty should be sanctioned. If political parties have done wrong things and the Supreme Court is supporting it, look at Kano. They said that some election papers were not signed, and the Supreme Court said that yes, it's okay. So next time, you are giving energy and power to INEC to do the same subsequently, because they have a backing of the Supreme Court now that says that, look, if you don't even sign what you should sign, it is okay. Supreme Court judges are not, God, and their decisions sometimes are also wrong. We should also know that. So we should not say Supreme Court has said this and that is God. They are God. No.
All right. We have to go. Thank you so much for your contribution. They say if you don't get judgments at the Supreme Court, then you go to God. But I think the position on the foreigner is very clear, that if you have a citizenship, if you were born in Nigeria and as a Nigerian and then you get the citizenship of another country, it still doesn't stop you from running for political offices in Nigeria.
Exactly.
But that's our show today. Thank you so much for your contribution. Have been speaking with legal practitioner and former presidential aide. It was former senior special assistant to the president on recovery of public property, Chief Okoi. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the program this morning.
Thank you.